listening to the Terrific Teacherpreneur, a podcast for teachers looking to grow a successful online business. Your host, Alex, was able to transform her Teachers Pay Teachers store from a small side hustle into a profitable full-time business. She now helps other teachers do the same. Listen along for actionable tips and helpful wisdom about business and marketing as a teacherpreneur. Here's your host, Alex.
Hey. Welcome to the Terrific Teacherpreneur podcast. Welcome to season 3. We're officially in the 3rd year of the podcast. How exciting. We've done 100 episodes. The whole thing is just really exciting. I can't believe we've gotten this far. But it's the start of 2023. And similar to last year, I wanted to do an episode at the beginning of the year where I talk about how to succeed on Teachers Pay Teachers this upcoming year. So if you are curious, you can definitely check out last year's episode 2 where I talk about how to succeed in 2022. It's not too specific to the year, so the tips are applicable, any year really. But I have some new fresh tips I wanted to talk about this year and I'm excited to dive in. So here are the 5 tips for growing your store in 2023. Whether you are a brand new seller or a super seasoned established seller, I think that these will help you. Number 1, simply set realistic goals. In fact, just set goals full stop. I think it's really important to be goal setting when it comes to your business. Beginning of the year is the perfect time to decide what you want to achieve this year exactly. And I think that your goals should be super smart, specific, measurable, that kind of stuff, the whole acronym. But being realistic is really important because in the past, I have done goal setting where I have set myself too many goals and kind of unrealistic ones that are very hard for me to achieve. And that only just makes me feel bad. So I think it's really good to go into it with just a small number of really realistic ones. And just while I'm talking about goal setting, make sure that they're not monetary, like those things are out of your control. So don't tell yourself, I want to make this much money in sales. I want to earn this much a month, blah, blah, blah. It's just setting yourself up for disappointment. So it's really good to set goals that are things you can control, like I want to make this many products. Things like followers and subscribers, those are other things, again, that are out of your control, but updating your listings or starting a marketing platform, like that's something you can do. So be realistic in what you assign yourself as a goal. But also, while I'm here, I thought I'll mention really quickly that although product creation is a really great goal to have, I'm going to make this many products, you don't want to be so strict with it that you end up kind of burnt out or churning out poor quality products. Like if you're chasing an arbitrary number, like 100 products, it can make you kind of rush. So, take it slow and steady. Quality is always better than quantity. Now, so that was tip number 1. Setting yourself some realistic goals is a great first step if you want to set yourself up for success this year. Tip number 2, I'm now going to be talking about product creation, and then we're going to go through a few other areas of the business throughout the other tips. But for tip number 2, create purposeful products this year. This ties into what I just mentioned about not rushing, not creating sort of subpar resources for the sake of it. So really being intentional in what you do, niche aligned, really teacher needed, high value, big ticket, good quality resources. And I will break down those things really quickly. When I say niche aligned, I mean, really focusing in on your niche this year and serving a certain set of buyers, not trying to please everybody. I think that's a really good approach. If you can narrow down your niche a bit in the way you create products, that's a great way to go. Teacher needed. So steer clear of the fluff and the cutesy stuff that teachers might want. Sometimes we can be tempted to make a cute little Halloween craft or whatever, but at the end of the day, making a science bundle that teaches a certain concept for the whole year, like that's something way more purposeful that a teacher's going to need and probably want to buy more. So keep that in mind. When I say high value, I mean high value, like it's going to be that the buyer's going to download it and think, wow, look at all this stuff. It's got black and white and color versions. It's got a digital one. It's got differentiation. Look at all the answer keys and instructions and all, like basically the product itself has all this really great stuff and all these great features, that there's lots of value in the amount of activities they get and the amount of lessons they can cover. And they're thinking, wow, this wasn't just like a one-off purchase I'm going to use for one lesson. This is something that, is really, really amazing and is going to serve me for longer. And that's really cool. And finally, when I say big ticket items, I just think it's really good to prioritize things that are going to make you more money. So if you're sitting there making all these $1 resources for 2023, there is a limit to how much money you can make. But if you were to funnel that time and energy into $5, $10, $20 resources, or bigger product lines and bundles, that are ultimately going to make you more money, that's always a good thing. So purposeful and intentional product creation is tip number 2. For tip number 3, create a plan for maintaining your store this year. And I love product updating and optimizing listings, so you shouldn't be surprised that I'm doing this as one of my tips. But I think it's good to sit down and make a list of the products in your store or the tasks that you want to complete, and really prioritize and focus on product updates this year, so the actual products, but also your listing optimization, covers, thumbnails, previews, descriptions, SEO, titles, the whole works on your listings. Schedule a time to do these things. So what this might look like is you sit there for just half an hour and you make a plan for yourself. You make a big long list of your products from bestseller to worst seller in a little table, and you put what needs to be updated, whether you can update the product or just the preview or the thumbnails, and you kind of create a little checklist. And then you plan out in your schedule that every Sunday morning when you're working on TpT, you're going to do one of these products and do one of those things, make this many previews or whatever. So setting yourself a plan, being really realistic in that and scheduling a time to do it is really great. And then by the year's end, your store is going to be amazing. It's not just about adding new products. It's about maintaining what you have, getting what you already have to sell more. We don't want to let the stuff in our store fester. We don't want it to sit there and get old and outdated. And we don't want to always be pouring our energy into making new things instead of fixing what we already have. It's like if your car breaks down, you fix a broken car. You can't just keep going out and buying new cars. So think about that. How can I be focusing my energy on what I already have and getting that to sell? So that's tip number 3, maintenance of your store. And I think that's a really important thing to focus on. It will bring you money. I've seen definitely a lot of growth in my store in the times that I've really prioritized updating, because it's just simply logical that the better preview I have and the better covers I have are going to convert better and make me more sales. So it's a really good idea if you want to grow in 2023. Now, tip number 4, we've talked about the TpT side of things. I want to talk about marketing for a moment. And my tip is simply just to focus on only 1 or maybe 2 marketing platforms this year. So again, being realistic in your goal setting and saying, I want to master Pinterest, and that is where I'm going to put all my energy. Or my goal this year is email. I'm going to be really focusing on my email list, and that is where all of my marketing energy is going. Or maybe you'll pick 2 things, like Pinterest and email, Instagram and Facebook. That's fine if you can manage that, but 1 or 2 is probably a really good maximum. If you try to take on 4 or 5 platforms this year, whether that's starting them from scratch or just trying to maintain them, you are going to, let some of them slide. So as a new seller, if you're listening and you're thinking about starting platforms, just start 1 and focus on that. And if you're a seasoned seller listening and you already have a bunch of platforms, put your energy into just 1 or maybe 2, because if you try to juggle Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, your blog and your email list, and you aren't really in a position to hire yet, you're just going to end up letting some of those fall to the wayside. It's like impossible to do it all. So try to narrow your focus when it comes to marketing, so that your time isn't being drained on too much marketing, but also that you're giving your marketing platforms a fair shot. Because it's pretty hard to grow on them and succeed if you are so divided in your energy and you're really not putting your all into it. So that's just my tip number 4 for you. And my final tip, number 5, spend your time wisely in general by cutting back on time wasters. So this is just overall big picture stuff when it comes to your business. Stop looking at other people in your niche, being jealous and kind of stalking other people, worrying what they're doing all the time. We spend so much time doing that. Stop dwelling on negative things, like, you got a bad review or something didn't really work out well. We can't dwell on these things for too long. Don't obsess about things that are out of your control, sitting there worrying about how many followers and reviews you have. You don't spend hours scrolling through social media, sitting there on Instagram for hours, just wasting your life away on things that aren't going to bring you money in your business. Don't get, really caught up in the whole shiny object syndrome of always trying to start new things. Time wasting is so easy here because you just picking up new platforms and products and ways of doing things all the time. It can waste so much time. And finally, don't waste your time in general, just unprofitable stuff. It's so easy to be spending time on a platform that doesn't bring you any money and then what a waste of time that is a year from now when you look back on it. So that's something to keep in mind. So a quick little summary for you of how to grow your TpT store in 2023. Be realistic in your goal setting. Create intentional, purposeful products. Make sure you have a plan for maintaining your store, planning what you're going to do, scheduling how you're going to do it, optimizing what you already have. Focus on just maybe one or maybe two marketing platforms and try not to spread yourself too thin. And just be mindful of how you're spending your time this upcoming year. Just cut back on some of those time wasters. And I know it's easier said than done, but I really think that it's a worthwhile thing. In general, I think if you could even apply one or two of these tips this year, you would see some really great success. But I don't think it's unrealistic to be doing all 5 of them. Setting yourself some great goals, not taking on too many marketing platforms, making great products, but also maintaining a store, cutting back on time wasters, like that is all pretty achievable. I think you could do those 5 things this year. And I think if you did, I think you would see some really, really amazing success. So I hope that you'll consider jotting some of them down, trying out a few of those things, or just kind of keeping them in mind. Now, I am going to pop a link in the show notes to my blog on my website where I have a few blog posts for TpT sellers. I've got various ones on topics such as covers, thumbnails, previews, that kind of stuff. So if you are thinking about some of the tips I shared today and you want to be optimizing your resources, you might want to check out some of those posts. Or you may be thinking about those marketing platforms, the 1 or 2 that you want to focus on. And I have an email marketing blog post and things like that, for example. So you might find some helpful info there, and you may not have read those posts yet or seen them. So I will pop a link in the show notes. But I want to wrap up the episode with just sharing the action item for this week. So tip number 1 was setting realistic goals. So I would be scheduling some time in the coming days or week or so this month where you're going to sit down and plan your goals for 2023. What are they going to be? That can tie in well to the tip about marketing. So have a little think, what is the 1 or 2 marketing platforms you want to focus on? That could be your goal. And then obviously the product optimization tip that I shared, that's something you might want to factor in. So sit down for 30 minutes or so, planning out, what resources you're going to be updating and optimizing this year. Get yourself a little checklist happening. So you could sort of set aside some time to do those things. And then the other tips I shared, just keep those things in mind. Maybe write yourself a little note somewhere in your planner or somewhere on your computer so that in the coming months of 2023, you don't forget those things. Making sure that you're making those purposeful products and that you are not time wasting. So hopefully that helps. I hope that you have a terrific day and good luck to everyone in 2023. I can't wait to hear how your businesses are going to thrive.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Terrific Teacherpreneur. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Come back for more actionable tips and helpful wisdom in the next episode with your host, Alex. Until then.